Story 1. Professional incompetence. On all levels, from cashiers at McDonald's to nuclear scientists, the difference is in how the organization handles and mitigates failure. Story 2. Not having any friends when you're older. After you graduate college, especially if you move to a new city for a job, it's hard to maintain friendships. And it's definitely hard to get new friends once you're in the adult world working every day. Many people's only friend is their spouse. And if they aren't married, many people just don't have any friends. Story 3. Miscarriage. The Mayo Clinic says up to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is already a lot. This is obviously heartbreaking for wanted pregnancies, but it can be difficult for unwanted pregnancies too. In addition to that 20%, many people miscarry before they learn they're pregnant. While not distressing in the same way as knowingly having a miscarriage, it's distressing for many people because of a seeming inability to get pregnant. Story 4. The number of people being left behind by services going digital is increasing. They come into the library where I volunteer to find help. Not only do some of them not have email addresses, but most of the ones who do rely on the computer remembering their passwords. A significant number don't even have mobile phones. Story 5. Low self-esteem. I don't know how many times I have seen people not invite, include, or initiate something with someone for fear of rejection or the other person finding them annoying. Then the other person feels rejected from not being included. A lot of people think they are more annoying or disliked than they actually are. Story 6. People being ashamed of things they like, such as professional wrestling, tabletop games, and types of media like anime or reality TV. People are much more insecure about others getting a peek at their true selves than most realize. Story 7. Impostor syndrome. No one knows what we are doing. We are all just winging it. Most of us are hoping that asking questions and being nice will get us there. Story 8. Childhood trauma. A lot of us hide it, mask it, or pretend we had normal lives. Please don't include childhood experiences in team-building workplace activities. This is hard to avoid and uncomfortable. Even something like a picture of you as a child or favorite childhood memories and goals. I'd much rather focus on the person I am today than the vulnerable little person I was many years ago. Story 9. Agreement to 4 statements, also known as the Barnum effect, is how horoscopes and fortune tellers get you. Most people highly agree with each of the following statements. You have a great need for other people to like and admire you. You have a tendency to be critical of yourself. You have a great deal of unused capacity which you have not turned to your advantage. While you have some personality weaknesses, you are generally able to compensate for them. Your sexual adjustment has presented problems for you. Disciplined and self-controlled outside, you tend to be worrisome and insecure inside. At times you have serious doubts as to whether you have made the right decision or done the right thing. You prefer a certain amount of change and variety and become dissatisfied when hemmed in by restrictions and limitations. You pride yourself as an independent thinker and do not accept others' statements without satisfactory proof. You have found it unwise to be too frank in revealing yourself to others. At times you are extroverted, affable, and sociable, while at other times you are introverted, wary, and reserved. Some of your aspirations tend to be pretty unrealistic. Security is one of your major goals in life. Story 10. Hoarding. People see the television show and think those are isolated incidents. But ask your local fire and emergency medical services providers and watch the horror creep across their faces. I've been in houses where you couldn't actually touch the floor, you walked on top of the debris. Houses where the door they use is the only door or window in the entire residence that can be opened. Houses where we had to station firefighters every couple of feet along the path through the mess and load the patient onto a mega mover, basically a heavy-duty sheet with grab handles on the sides, and pass her person to person out the door. It is way more prevalent than you can even imagine. Story 11. Grown folks failing to look up anything on their own or calling ahead to see if a place is open. The number of times I got screamed at already this week for, "Why were you closed on Monday?" Ma'am or sir, it's a federal or national holiday that's been in effect for longer than you and I have been alive. Also, we posted signs stating such on every entrance and exit door on the building on Friday morning. They were still up on Tuesday when we returned to work. Screaming at a random person because you were either willfully ignorant or didn't think to call ahead, and then didn't read the signs plastered all over just makes you look irrational. Plus, you made a trip today for nothing because the item you're looking for still isn't in yet. Had you called ahead, you wouldn't have wasted your time, energy, and gas getting here for nothing. Story 12, Train Derailments. When the wreck in East Palestine happened, a whole lot of people acted like this was just unheard of. I work in an industry that is heavily affected by rail, and let me tell you, it's very common. We are impacted by derailments a few times a month at least. Story 13. People in recovery for drugs or alcohol. Once I joined Alcoholics Anonymous and started getting sober, I realized just how many of us there are. I also randomly meet tons of people in recovery just when I share I'm sober with people. We are everywhere. Story 14. Maladaptive daydreaming, particularly after childhood trauma. The only way some kids can get through horrific childhoods is by detaching themselves from the reality of their situation. They create intricate fantasies as a sort of virtual reality to escape into. These fantasies are so detailed and vivid, they become your primary reality. It can be hard to let go of this coping strategy in adulthood because the world in your head feels more real and safer than the outside world. You can lose entire days to maladaptive daydreaming. It impacts your sleep because you can't shut your mind off. It impacts your friendships because you don't want to communicate with the outside world. And it makes you mentally foggy. At its worst, you don't eat properly or at all, and you neglect your hygiene or surroundings. It's not like normal daydreaming. It can ruin your life and interfere with everything you do. I live with maladaptive daydreaming and almost ruined my whole life because of it. I know other people who have been through similar experiences. On the plus side, though, maladaptive daydreaming can lead to amazing creativity if you can learn to control it rather than letting it control you. Story 15. Sleep apnea and other sleep disorders. It took me 3 years to get diagnosed because my symptoms were dismissed as depression since I didn't have any of the sleep apnea risk factors, and I had a previous history of depression, despite my initial insistence that I dealt with depression before and this was different. I guess I eventually started believing them. Then I got a new psychiatrist. I told her I was having a depressive episode. She asked me about my symptoms, and all the symptoms she asked about, either I wasn't experiencing them or they were the direct result of being tired all the time. For example, I hadn't so much lost interest in activities, I was just too tired to do anything. She told me that it sounded more like I was describing a sleep disorder than a depressive episode and referred me to a sleep lab. She said she ends up referring a lot of her patients to sleep labs, and another friend of mine who was a psychiatry resident said he also ends up diagnosing sleep apnea a lot. Sleep disorders can mimic or exacerbate the symptoms of mental illnesses, so I guess it takes a psychiatrist to tell when someone isn't depressed. Story 16. People not knowing about whatever the current activism is on social media. A big example is the Starbucks and McDonald's boycott. Everyone online is convinced it's a huge boycott, yet most people in the real world do not know a thing about it. People forget that not everyone is online 24/7, and just because you know about something doesn't mean others do if they're not in that same online circle. Story 17. Stupidity and apathy. So many people you encounter in your day-to-day life are either idiots or just do not care. The kid at the drive-thru you thought was rude does not care. The employee that made you add signs and rules like, "Don't use the bathroom in the company shower," is stupid. Story 18. Chin hairs on women. I am a dental hygienist, and I see them on 90 to 95% of my female patients, and I sometimes wonder how many women feel self-conscious about it. Well, I am here to tell you that it is normal, and none of us judge you or find your chin hairs interesting in the slightest. Honestly, the same goes for a lot of things on your face that many people worry about when going to the dentist. We may notice it, but it is not nearly as exciting as the fuzzy biofilm lurking on your second molars. Story 19. Propaganda. Most of us realize that there is a lot of it, but I think most do not understand that it is everywhere. Too many people like to think they are too smart to fall for propaganda, not realizing just how pervasive it actually is. Story 20. Suicides often get reported as natural causes or similar. Many people might underdose or overdose on their prescription medications, which rarely gets reported as suicide unless a note is left. Car accidents can also be suicides, but many are reported as mere accidents. The same applies to drownings and accidents around the home. It is difficult to hide a shooting or hanging, but many take their life through different means, and if it's not clear-cut, it often gets recorded as something else. Story 21. Abnormal amounts of dissociation. Many go their entire lives without ever realizing it's not how most people function. You have to do a lot of research into how and why it's not to fully understand, which only makes it worse. If you don't want to find out, I understand. It's not life-threatening or anything extreme like that. It's just that it answers so many questions we have about a lot that could be wrong with us. Story 22. Good people. Seriously, I think over 90% of us are at least decent. People look at politicians and celebrities and other extremely public people and think everyone is like that. For some reason, we haven't figured out how to do government or business without the worst people making it to the top. But I still believe most of us are more good than bad. Even a good portion of Trump voters probably aren't doing it for nefarious reasons. They're just uninformed or ignorant and have bought into the lies. Cynicism is a major problem in the world because it stalls or halts progress. To improve anything, you need to believe it can be improved. Idealism alone won't solve things, you have to act on it and apply it correctly. But cynicism can never solve anything. Story 23. Borderline personality disorder takes a long time to be diagnosed and is often misdiagnosed for a long time. If people are really unwell, they may not seek treatment. Understanding of the disorder is still emerging. Story 24. Celebrities related to other celebrities, movie stars being the child of two other movie stars, and general inside connections are a significant factor in determining who gets to be on screen. If you're wondering how the semi-conscious wooden plank Dakota Johnson got to be the star of the garbage pile movie Madam Web, she is the child of Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith. Story 25. People lying who have no reason to lie. A lot of people just lie for attention. This is how urban legends and myths spread. My friend had a snake that started starving itself, and it would lay beside her. Turned out it was trying to make room so it could eat her. Your friend lied. My friend worked at a hospital and someone named their daughter Lue, pronounced Ledasha. Your friend lied. But people get super mad when you even gently tell them that story isn't true. I'm a journalist. I spent a decade researching these urban legend names. I got $100 for anyone who can provide proof of them. Nobody in a decade has gotten the money. Story 26. Sleep-related impairment. If your surgeon has 6 hours of sleep or less, they have a 170% higher chance of making a fatal error. Letting kids start school closer to 9 than to 7 resulted in a 70% decrease in road accidents. There is a 24% increase in cardiovascular issues from just 1 hour less sleep during daylight savings, and the same percentage decrease when we get an extra hour of sleep. Absolutely mind-blowing stuff, and I am pretty horrified since I haven't had a good week of sleep since I was 12. I am 31, and I sometimes worry I'll get dementia or something. Story 27. Miscarriages happen very often. It is unfortunate when it happens to you, and not a lot of people speak about it. Most of the time, it's just bad luck and does not mean something is wrong with you or that you did something wrong. It is concerning if it happens multiple times in a row, though. Story 28. Diamonds. The entire industry is a sham. A handful of companies control a near monopoly on the market and artificially inflate the price of stones by buying up all the raw diamonds they can and only selling a small fraction to the public. Story 29. Autism in women. Sure, TikTok is making this omnipresent in a potentially dangerous way, but it's a reaction to growing up in a world where it was thought only boys could be on the spectrum. All my teachers knew something was wrong with me, but never what specifically, and I had a really hard time as a teen. As an adult, I've sought out a diagnosis, but because I've had so many shifting and conflicting mental health diagnoses, it makes it really hard. I'll probably never get a formal diagnosis, but if they could see how some of the older people in my family were, there would be no question. Story 30. Australian female sex worker here. Sexually transmitted infections, amongst civilians anyway. Sex workers in Australia actually have lower rates than the average person. Small penises, and large ones for that matter, Most straight men's ideas of what constitutes small, average, and large are seriously warped by pornography. Third, nipples. I always kiss them for good luck when I come across them. Haha. Phimosis, also known as the inability or difficulty in retracting the foreskin. It should be less common, amongst my clients anyway. If you can afford $500 or more on a sex worker, you can afford to get it fixed. It might even be free because it is a legitimate health issue. People who are or claim to be ultra-religious and also regularly see sex workers. The same goes for those who drink or take drugs, to the point where sex workers will often schedule their holidays around religious holidays like Ramadan because the brothels and phones get noticeably quieter.